Taj, what you know, brother? You all right?
Man, it's your world, bro. It's your world. Man, we have the illustrious, the one and only, he whose legacy is spoken about in whispers throughout the regions, both in this dimension as well as others. The one and only George Crawford, MD, from the legendary Olympic class of 1996
Olympic
of
class.
Morehouse College.
Olympic class.
What it do, boy?
Man. It is good to see you. You been all right?
I've been good, man. I've been good, man. Just the same on ones and twos. How have you been, bro?
Working, man. You know, healthcare is healthcare right now, so it's healthcare. But it's fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. I think.
Bro, hey man, honestly, man, thank you for taking the time out on your Saturday, man, to hang with us here on People Street, man. I know you have a whole lot of stuff you could be doing. Today we have my classmate from the illustrious class of 1996 at Morehouse College, that beacon on the red clay hill in Georgia, George Crawford, who is the definition of a multi-hyphenate. Can you tell us, George, who are you, bro? Who is George Crawford?
Uh, I'll start at the top. First thing I'd say is I'm a dad with 4 kids, and then from there I'm a surgeon. Then I have all this other stuff that I do on the side. Man of God, got to put that out there.
Indeed.
And inventor, and somebody with probably too many hobbies. Between my hobbies and my kids, I probably will be working till I'm 109, like my grandmother did. So
She's lived till she was 109.
yeah, man. She passed in November, and she was about 6 months past, 6 months short of 110.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
dude, you're
She
so blessed to have had her that long, bro.
Absolutely. It's kind of weird to be 50 years old when other people are losing their parents, and my grandmother was still around. So, and she played a pivotal role in my life. So, yeah, so it was a blessing.
Was she sharp?
She was up until maybe six, probably, and then that's when we started to see the decline.
Mm-hmm.
But she was always a funny one. I would actually feature her every once in a while live on my Instagram. I'd ask her, I said, I explained ratings to her. And I said, Gigi, how would you rate, you know, 5 stars getting 106? She was like, 0 out of 5, would not recommend. But no, it was a blessing to have her around, and we enjoyed it. And I think, up until, that last 5 years, she enjoyed us. So it was a blessing.
Did you ever ask her what the secret was to her longevity?
Okay. Listen, this does not work for everybody, but she said, just stay single and you'll live forever.
That's what she said.
Yeah. So yeah, I know. That's why I prefaced it. I'm like, this is not this is not advice. So don't come looking at the wife, husbands, don't come looking for me. But she my grandfather died when she was 32.
Oh,
And
ooh.
my father was an only child. So, my grandma, she was living life after that. And she was like, I did exactly what I wanted to do, enjoyed it. If I wanted to do it, I did it. If I don't, I don't. She said, I just lived a happy life with no stress. I was like, okay.
Man, listen, dude, I want to get into the weeds on that, George. Because for those that are just meeting George Crawford, George is a very humble guy, but George is a fantastic surgeon, and George has already always been tight, even since we were in college. But you come from a family of intellectuals. And there's a common theme, George. I got a partner that I went to med school with that I'm really close with, that's an orthopod down here. And, invariably we always end up talking about, what were the social ingredients that went into us getting to where we are today. You know what I mean? And without a doubt, family, strong family, it has been, seems to me, one of the primary, if not the primary determinant. George's brother is also a plastic surgeon. I actually took chemistry with his brother. I don't know if you knew that or not, dude, but
I
I,
didn't know that.
yeah. Marcus and I, when I didn't decide to go into medicine until sophomore year, so obviously I was behind cycle. You know what I mean? So I took those basic classes with the younger cats. So I took a couple of classes with Marcus, but statistically, for both of y'all to end up being surgeons, just in America, just worldwide, to have two siblings that are physicians is exceedingly small, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of socioeconomic class. And it's two of y'all that I know of out of one family. How did that happen, bro?
So, okay, listen, this is not advice for everybody. I'm going to preface that again like my last statement. I grew up on a farm and my parents had a couple of rental houses, and every day when I got home from school, I had to go cut grass during the summer. With summer break, I had to go do something with the cows. And my parents kind of made a deal. They said, "Hey, we will support you while you're in school, and when you get out of school, you're on your own, or you can sit up here and take care of these cows, chickens, and goats and cut grass." And my brother, my sister, and I kind of said, not doing that long term. So we
Right.
looked for the longest schooling thing we could come up with. And my brother and I were both like, man, let's go to medical school, and my dad was a dentist. So we kind of already had that healthcare um, kind of turn anyway. But yeah, my sister got a PhD. My brother's a plastic surgeon, and I'm a general surgeon. So if you tell your kids the options and lay them out there, and also I think instill hard work.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that I've learned. And I think Harvard did a paper about kids and chores.
Mm-hmm.
They're more likely to be successful if they have a lot of chores when they're children because they get used to it. So I
Mm.
think building that desire to that, it's not a desire. What happens is work is a pain in the butt when you begin, but somewhere in the middle, you start to enjoy it and you kind of appreciate the fact that you're doing something and getting something out of it.
Yeah.
And I think my parents just kind of instilled that in us early.
Mm-hmm.
And that combined with, you do pretty well financially in healthcare, and it allows you to open up a lot of doors. Um, from that standpoint. But I will tell you a secret. I technically kind of didn't know I wanted to do medical school until maybe my senior year
Mm-hmm.
at Morehouse,
Mm-hmm.
and when I was applying through the process. And part of it was because my brother was like, "I'm going to Baylor College of Medicine." I said, "Oh well, I'll apply." And my homeboy Moses, he was like, "Well, I'm going to medical school." I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Well, it sounds like it's
Mm-hmm.
long school. I don't have to go work on the farm anymore. I'll
Yeah.
do it." So it just kind of ended up. I kind of followed other successful people, like Kelvin Moses, urologist at
Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt, Marcus, and then Eric Tate came through. There's just a lot of brothers that came through. So we kind of got on this road together and went there.
What's your sister's PhD in?
She has a PhD in epidemiology from Harvard.
Wow, dude, that's crazy. What did she do?
So right now she works for startups. She does. I'll be honest. She has one of those jobs that I barely
I
understand.
understand,
I
yeah.
just get a text every once in a while. Hey, I'm presenting in front of the UN, or hey, I'm doing this conference here, or hey, I'm doing this,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
But she's paying the bills with a good degree, so I can't complain.
Yeah. You famously come out of the chemistry department.
Absolutely.
Um, the chemistry department at Morehouse College was chemistry is tough anywhere. It was especially tough at Morehouse, and George excelled at chemistry such that people knew outside of the department that George was kicking tail in chemistry. What was the school system like where you first of all, where did you grow up and what was the school system like, George?
So I went to Aiken High School in Aiken, South Carolina. It was a regular old 4A public school in rural South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing special. I kind of goofed around in high school a good bit, but I had a great science teacher and a great math teacher. Miss Andrews was the chemistry teacher, and I just fell in love with it. And then math and science, I think, just kind of came natural to me. I think my best grades definitely were math and science, but I didn't like reading and doing all that other stuff, history. So yeah, nothing special. No prep school, no summers, at one of the Duke University programs or anything like that. Just
Mm-hmm.
public high school.
Miss Andrews, man. Tell us about Miss Andrews, man. Was Miss Andrews a sister?
No, no. Miss Andrews was an older white lady that smoked about a pack a day.
Okay, Miss
Um,
Andrews. What was
yeah,
she smoking? Was she smoking
she,
Newports?
but here, I'll tell you the thing. The only reason I remember her name was I was in her class sophomore year, and she was one of those weird ladies. She had everybody sit in alphabetical order, so there was no favoritisms, none of that. You just walked in, sat down, and the only thing you could do was smart. She ranked your laboratory group by your grade. So I was
Oh,
at the first table or the second table versus you at the very end. I don't think you could get away with that right now.
yeah.
One day I was like, Miss Andrews, I keep seeing a pattern. And she looks at me and she's like, what? She said, I'm like, there's a pattern to stuff you do and the test and all this stuff. And she said, catch me outside and I'll tell you. It's like, oh,
Okay.
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 So I was walking around one day and she was outside smoking. And I walked up to her and she says, I teach the same thing every year. I'm like, what? She's like, I have a set book. I'll show it to you. And on day one, I teach this. Day two, I teach this. Day three, I teach this. She said, I've been teaching so long that I've gotten it down to a science.
No pun
And
intended.
she said, I don't have to think about it. She said, I don't have to think what I put on the board. I'll just look in my book and say, today's day five. And I know the ninth graders get this, the 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders get this. And I'm
Yes.
like, wait a minute. Did she say hustle? Sure, she didn't say hustle.
She said hustle.
She said hustle. So I was just kind of like, from that standpoint, I think I went into education realizing that, part of it was a hustle. It's like anything in life. You got to understand the hustle. And when you understand the hustle or you understand the game,
Mm-hmm.
you understand the rules of it, it makes it easier and you now know how to play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Miss Andrews was always, she would just sit up there. It was almost like she could write up on the board without looking because she just had done it for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she kind of put me on that right path of understanding that yes, it's a body of knowledge and education, but it's also a game. You got to be able to understand the game. And once you understand the game in anything,
Mm-hmm.
surgery, medicine, chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, business, inventing, all of that stuff. Once you understand the rules and know how to play, get in the ring.
God bless Miss Andrews,
I
man. Is
know.
Miss Andrews still with us? Do you know?
No, man. No, 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 no. I
She went
think
on home.
she was 60 when I graduated from high school, and that was back in 92.
Mm-hmm. Oh
So yeah.
wow. Yeah, yeah. So she's home. But bless her anyway, man. For not only doing some good teaching, man, but having her pedagogy
Right.
down to a science.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And being able to transmit that to her students, man. Were you a well-rounded student in high school?
Nah, man, we probably want to skip high school. High school was rough for me.
Oh, it was.
Oh, dog. High school was rough. I had a rough start in high school. So once I got past the freshman year, I played, I was in the band, played football. So
What'd
I
you
did a
play
little
in
bit of everything.
what'd you play in the band, George?
I was a percussionist.
Oh, okay, right on.
Yeah. And my parents started me playing piano when I was very young. So I could read music, still play a little bit of piano. My mom was that girl that grew up in rural North Carolina that sang and played the piano in church. And she, continued to play, until she probably had kids. We had a piano in the house all the time. So it kind of was always around music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my parents made sure that we were well-rounded, kind of outside of the traditional model.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect example is like my brother and I were registered boat captains in South Carolina when we were like 18 to 25. We had
Real.
motorcycle licenses. I think we were, still are, observers for the International Game Fishing Association for marlin and sailfish tournaments. So it's just kind of, my parents were they'd try anything. They were like, "Hey, let's go see if we like it." So some of the stuff we did, some of the stuff we didn't. So we were always exposed to just everything, everything, everything.
No limits.
Uh,
Your
No,
your
no,
parent,
no.
I mean, I see a pattern emerging. Your parents instilled in y'all very early, no limits. You know what I'm saying,
Yes,
George?
yes.
Because I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, man. You know how it is, man. A lot of times the people that we're around, their social construct limits them from the get-go, man. Because like yourself, my mom, my first of all, my mom played piano all through
Okay,
high school.
okay.
She played in church. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she encouraged us not only to play piano, but to do what, like, I played clarinet. We did
Play
every
clarinet.
I played B flat clarinet, bruh. And it wasn't my favorite, but I
Right.
wanted to try it, and she didn't discourage me from that.
Correct. Correct.
You know what I'm
Correct.
saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what have told my children, try it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if
Right.
you don't like it, fair play,
Correct.
but you
Correct.
may love it. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yes.
And even if you don't, the immersion in the activity is going to make you a richer person. You know
Yes.
what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
So I totally I love how your parents and their approach to parenting is, man, because our kids and kids at large need that, man. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Because there's not just a one track way to approach childhood and being exposed to things.
Correct.
Um, so high school. How did you end up coming to Morehouse, man?
So I am a second generation. My dad graduated from Morehouse in '63,
Okay.
and he graduated when he was 18.
What?
Yeah, he went 15. He started 15, graduated when he was 18. My dad is,
Bad boy.
my dad, and he was an oceanographer for 10 years for the Department of Defense. And then after that, he went to dental school in Augusta, Georgia. So, he kind of, my grandmother was a teacher. So, around that time, she was like, Morehouse takes boys and turns them into men. So
There
I
you
would
go.
give my son to Morehouse so that they can make him a man. And I think for her, part of it was Morehouse was founded in Augusta, Georgia, and so there is that presence there. Plus, my dad, his dad was not around, so she kind of leaned on the community. And in Augusta, Georgia, there's a lot of brothers that went to Morehouse College, so it was just kind of that. And then it's like even though I have a bunch of play uncles. All of those jokers went to Morehouse College. So I
Right.
probably would not have been able to go home for Christmas or any holidays after high school if I didn't end up at Morehouse.
Hmm.
So part of it was forced upon me. I didn't choose it, but couldn't refuse it. And
There you go. Up to you to use it.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
You know what I'm
So
saying?
so that's how we ended up there. My brother went to Morehouse, my sister went to Spelman. My son Ryan, he just got into Morehouse. He'll be there. Ethan is like, I'm going to Morehouse too. I think Ethan will probably, even though he's a sophomore this year. I think when Ryan starts at Morehouse, Ethan probably will start at Morehouse as well because he's like,
Okay.
I'm going to hang out the whole weekend. And
Yeah.
I do dual enrollment. I'm like, dude, slow down. Just you know,
Yeah.
you gonna get there. So.
Dude, that's a beautiful
And
thing,
then my
George.
oldest daughter, she transferred. She and I had she didn't. I told her she needed to go to Spelman. She wanted to go someplace else per mom. She transferred in on a junior year, so she finished up at Spelman as well. And she's a dentist. She's graduating from Tufts in a couple weeks.
Congrats, George, man.
Yeah.
Boy, listen, man. Man, I'm gonna be calling you, man. You know what I'm saying? Because I love what you're doing, man. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, my roommate in college was also from South Carolina. He's gone. He was our classmate at Morehouse. Very special guy named DeQuincy Hens. He was a preacher and
Yes.
intellectual.
Cute.
Really, really big South Carolina guy.
Yes.
And he used to have tremendous respect for you, George. And I think one of the times, one of the conversations we had very early on was, I don't know if y'all met before y'all came to Morehouse or
Then
uh,
met him
or, or
there. Met him. South. Like I said, South Carolina kind of always. We always. A couple of us, and we just kind of always knew each other. And yeah, I met him at Morehouse.
yeah, that's so crazy. And I remember I was sitting around talking one day when I decided to go into. I think it may have been when I decided to go into medicine. I'm from the English department,
Right.
George.
I didn't know that.
Um, yeah. But I remember he was talking about you in chemistry, and I was like, yeah, man, because you used to tutor too, right?
I did. I
Yeah,
did.
yeah. I remember you used to tutor, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm gonna need some tutoring. He was like, man, you need to go holler at my boy George. Blah, say, blah. George is nice with the chemistry, and I was like, okay. I said, well, we continued to talk, and he was like, yeah, man. He was like, I was talking to George, and I asked him, this is what he telling me. He's like, yeah, I asked him, I was like, man, why you like chemistry so much? And he said, what he told me you told him. He said, you said, man, I just got a romance with it. You know what I'm saying? And we 19 having this conversation, you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
So I'm like, I couldn't stand chemistry in high school, man. You know what I mean? And so what was it about chemistry? Like, why chemistry, George?
So,
As a, you know what I mean?
yeah, so it's the way my brain works more than anything. I think like even in healthcare or anything I do, I tell a story, and chemistry probably tells the purest story of any discipline. Physics sort of, but chemistry is based on the bonds that are created, how hydrogen, oxygen, you're looking at neutron and electrons, and it builds from there. So
Hmm.
again, kind of like Ms. Andrews, you have this core set of rules that you have to follow. Once you follow those rules, you grow from there. And chemistry is full of rules, Heisenberg uncertainty principle, stuff like that, that it
Hmm.
just kind of was like, you know, it made sense to me,
Hmm.
it's kind of even the way that I look at surgery now. When I do surgery, I look at, okay, these are the rules I got to play by. This is what I'm doing. Let's make it happen, and then that's how I go with it. Or even when I talk to patients, I'll tell you a secret. I probably cannot remember anybody's name. I'm always been bad with names. But if you say that, that's like, and once you kind of click me in, I'm like, oh yeah, you're the person that has 3 kids. You got a daughter that does this, that you like doing this, and you had your gallbladder out, and I did that. And people look at me, they're like, wow. I'm like, because I just remember stories. It's like this little book, this little book, this little book, and it's just from chemistry. And, that spoke to me. Plus, Dr. Gore was in the math department,
Hmm.
and I met that
Hmm.
brother probably summer science, and I was like, he's a little too intense for me. So I think I was one class short of a math minor at Morehouse.
For real?
Yeah. So
For
chemistry
those that
degree, because I just love math and chemistry, and they go hand in hand,
hand
like
in hand,
chemistry
yeah.
does. But Dr. Gore, I was like, ooh. And at that point, I was like, I'm trying to go to medical school. I don't want to mess up my GPA. I was doing pretty good by that time. So I just said I'll switch because I think I actually was a math and chemistry major in the beginning, and then just said I'll switch to the math minor. And then I said I just needed one class, but I was not going to take it to mess up my stuff.
You know, just to digress a minute. At the time that we came through Morehouse, and I'm just speaking to kind of like the people watching this interview. George and I, we were born in essence, post civil rights movement. So we still had a lot of professors walking around campus that had been there through the 50s and the 60s that were legends of Morehouse that built the reputation of Morehouse, particularly in the science department.
Yes.
In George's department, we had Dr. McBay,
Hmm.
who was a giant
Yes.
of chemistry. One of our math professors, Dr. Gore, was a legendary mathematician, and he was the type of cat, if you watch Different World and Colonel Taylor, Colonel War, or Dr. War, whatever they called him, whose reputation preceded itself. George, can you please share with us an anecdote about Dr. Gore? I never took Dr. Gore, but I was scared to take Dr. Gore, and everybody was scared to take Dr. Gore.
So
Can you tell us an anecdote that illuminates his reputation?
yeah, I'll tell you two actually. So my best friend in the world, Kelvin Moses, he and I did summer science together. So that was like a pre-program before we started Morehouse. And his name was Kelvin Moses. And Dr.
Moses.
Gore with his glasses, and you say something, he'd look over the glasses and he'd look at you and he would just say, Moses. And he went on this biblical talk for, I don't know, it was like 10 minutes about the math in the Bible. And from that point on, everybody knew Kelvin Moses on campus as Moses. It was just kind of just because of do when somebody goes in on your name and mathematically breaks down the Bible and keeps calling you Moses for the next 15, 20 minutes in class, you just become Moses. But the other story I do remember that was pretty funny was he had these kids, these four Morehouse guys that were late to class one time. They had a test, and he was like, they were like,
Hmm.
"Hey, sorry, we had an issue with the car. The car broke down. We got a flat tire. I couldn't really make it to school on time. Can we retake the test?" And he said, "Okay." So he said, but put them all in 4 separate rooms, and he looks at each one of them and says, which tire?
Yes, that's it.
And I was
That
like, oh,
that's the famous story, George.
yes.
George, was that a true story?
Yeah. So he said it was a true story. He said it was a little different, but he said, yeah, but the basis of it was true. But, the other thing is it always sticks in my mind. And I always tell my kids, I'm like, listen, guys, always be honest. But if you're doing something you're not supposed to be and you're trying to make up a story or you're just doing anything, the devil is in the details. And that's what that story always taught me is that those guys would have gotten away with it if they had just said, hey, right front, right front. And it was just a
Yes.
detail because they did that first level of the hustle. And it's like you got to know the second and third. But Dr. Gore, you wouldn't have been able to get around. He might have asked what type of tire or who fixed it. He
Yeah.
would have come up with another question. But, again, the details.
That is the classic story, dude. That's the story I know.
Yes.
And that's the story that followed Dr. Gore around. Can you imagine, because back in the day, we used to do stuff like drive to Howard homecoming. You be late to class. Dr. Gore say which tire was flat. Y'all ain't talked about which tire.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. But now, I'm not worried about my kids because they will know which tire, who fixed it. We call AAA. Here's the
Yeah,
number.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Take it. All right, take us to the present day, George. Why general surgery, bro?
So at the end of the day, I would describe myself as a pseudo artist. And the thing that really drew me, two things that drew me to general surgery. One, well, actually, I'll go with three things. Three things. So one, and I'll put a small story. I did a way rotation at in medical school in Cancun. Worked in a small hospital there. Met a guy, Jose. I can't remember his last name, but he was a general surgeon that had trained at UCLA. And this was a small hospital. They had windows in the operating room. The patients had to wash their own dressings. And he had this patient come in, and she was hurting, had real bad pain. We next day took her to the operating room. She had a huge gallbladder infected. She was in the hospital for a week. She came back to see him probably 2 weeks. It was like right before, maybe 3 weeks later, right before I left. And is that a dog?
My puppy, man. This is Bogley. Say hey to
Listen,
Dr. Crawford.
had
Say
I
how.
known we were bringing animals, I would have brought my turkey or one of my chickens with me and brought them up on the thing. But the but she came back and he was like, "How are you feeling?" She was like, "Feeling great. No more pain. I'm good." And he was like, "Okay, thank you." And I'm like, I had this look in my eye. He's like, he said, "Yeah, you got the bug." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "In general surgery, we fix people." He said,
Mm,
"Everybody else in medicine, they come in, they have problems, you kind of fix it, you kind of take care of it." Because up in that point, I think I wanted to do family medicine or OB because that was the only real type of physician I was exposed to. And I
hmm.
realized, wait a minute, this is like a one night stand of medicine. People come in with a problem, you fix it, and then you don't have to talk to them anymore.
Right,
Like,
right.
that's the core of general surgery. Appendix, gallbladder, colon cancer, breast cancer, skin lesions, whatever, lipomas, you cut them out, they're done. They don't have to deal with it anymore, especially if you do it right. So, that ability to fix people, that spoke to me. And then, the nice part about general surgery is, especially laparoscopic surgery, which I kind of took a real big liking to, is that, you kind of have this black box. People say, hey, I have this problem. You're going to go in and fix it. And I literally go inside, fix it, close them back up, and nobody knows what I did. They know that they feel better and their problem is solved. But, it's kind of like creating a piece of artwork and then sealing it in a box that people can only see the outside. They don't actually see the beauty or, the complexity of it. They don't know if this surgery was supposed to take 2 hours and we did it in 20 minutes or the reverse. They don't know if it was worse than we talked about and we got it fixed. At the end of the day, they kind of don't care. They're like, I'm better. That's all that counts. So that mystery of it kind of I enjoyed. And then I really fell in love with it probably when I got into medical school and realized how behind general surgery was from a technology standpoint, and really honestly, healthcare in general.
Mm.
But
What do you mean specifically, George?
so laparoscopic surgery. was invented in the 80s, and it really didn't get up and running until around 92, 9 or in the 90s, maybe 95. So a lot of the stuff that we were doing in general surgery when I was in residency around 2000, we were still figuring out instruments. We didn't have good instruments to do some of the stuff that we do. One of the leaders in general surgery, C. Dan Smith, who taught me at Emory, and John Hunter, who was also at Emory at the same time, they would talk about we need these type of instruments. In order to do a fellowship in laparoscopic surgery, C. Dan Smith had to hop around and do micro fellowships just to kind of gather the data. So I
Wow.
kind of trained during general surgery when laparoscopic surgery was in its infancy. And, there were a lot of instruments that they needed that they didn't have. There were a lot of processes that hadn't been developed just because it was new and the nature of healthcare at that time. So it left me a opportunity to say, okay, not only do I like the surgery, I like the mystery of it, I like fixing people, but there's also a lot of room for improvement. And that's kind of where I took my inventive nature and kind of went into surgery with it in healthcare.
For those that don't know, let's get into the weeds a little bit. George is talking about laparoscopic surgery, and what he means by that is, the traditional surgical approach, for thousands of years has been to take a sharp instrument and cut through skin and approach problem solving from that way. But laparoscopy, these surgeons have the capability to insert what they call a trocar into the abdomen and what they call insufflate, which is to insert a gas into the cavity of the abdomen, which makes it, which would separate, which gives him space. I guess that's the best way I can describe it to view. And also simultaneously, with both hands, which is where the artistry comes in at. You have to be very dexterous. Your depth perception, your hand-eye coordination, has to be great to actually approach a lot of these surgical problems through this approach, and while looking at a camera with making a very, very small incision, which decreases the amount of post-operative morbidity, meaning complications that don't cause death, and mortality, which is, death. And it revolutionized surgery. But people often ask me, George, from the anesthesia perspective, like what are y'all back there doing? But in particular with laparoscopic surgery, that laparoscopic surgery has its own set of attendant issues that you have to
Yes.
deal with.
Yes.
Also you have to think about bradycardia during these issues when the vagus nerve, is stimulated upon insufflation, increased airway pressures when you're in Trendelenburg, things of that nature. So people like George are artistes and go in and are able to solve these problems while hopefully decreasing the possibility of these extra long hospital stays that are not only super expensive, but have attendant risks just from being in the hospital itself, because we all know that being in the hospital for a period of time has its own risks as well, dude. So if you have children out there that are interested in what George is doing, um, look at his page. He posts so many things, so many routine and non-routine of types of procedures that are super duper interesting. And if you're interested from the anesthesia side, anesthesia for all of these different disciplines is super, super interesting as well. And it's like a symphony, because there needs to be communication between the surgeon and anesthesia, which is a beautiful thing too, to be in concert with somebody else. You also are a bariatric surgeon. Is that
Yeah.
correct, George?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So that's weight loss surgery. Right now, the dominant procedure in the United States is a sleeve gastrectomy. So we make a stomach about the size of a banana, more or less, so you eat less. We're not doing as much as we used to now because of, the GLP-1, the Ozempics, Wegovy, all of those medications. And some of the older procedures are coming back, like duodenal switches, just because, if you wanted to lose 10, 15, 20 pounds, you could do it if you want to lose 50 or 100 pounds. Before, you had to look at surgery. Diets themselves were successful about 10% of the time, versus surgery was successful about 60 to 70% of the time. So for long-term weight loss is a better option. And we were doing that up until GLP-1s. And here's the funny part is as a surgeon, I'm like, GLP-1 versus surgery, do the GLP-1. I hate to say it. Less risk, surgery has risk. No matter who you are, there's a possibility that you have a problem. So if you have the ability to lose the weight without doing it, okay, I think that's reasonable. But what's happened though is with that, we've seen, 1/3 of the patients that we would do, that one half that were just trying to lose 50, 60 pounds, they now do that with medication. So the patients that we're left with in the bariatric world are the people that need to lose 150 pounds, 200 pounds, people that need staged procedures. So it's becoming back from a generalist thing to a specialty thing. But, at the end of the day, with 1/3 of our population being overweight, something needs to be done.
George, can you explain to people that don't know what does staged procedure mean?
So, the average person is probably going to lose 100 up to anywhere from 50 to 100, at the high end, 150 pounds with a sleeve gastrectomy. 150 would be someone that's, you know, putting in the work, eating the right things, doing lifestyle changes, but average 75 to 100 pounds. If you are 250 pounds overweight, your risks are really high even during surgery. So a lot of times what we'll have to do is we'll do a sleeve gastrectomy first, and then you'll lose 100 pounds. So now your risk from the anesthesia, your risk from complications, your risk from surgery are a little lower. So then we sometimes have to go back and convert them to a gastric bypass or something called a SATI, kind of rerouting the intestine so that you have a malabsorption component. So when we talk about stage procedures, we're really talking about doing two so you can lose 250 to 300 pounds in a safe manner.
Okay. So for those that don't know, what do you mean a malabsorption component, George?
So a sleeve gastrectomy, all we're doing is make your stomach smaller so you eat less. You get full quicker. When you start doing stuff like duodenal switches, when you start doing stuff like SATIs, when you start doing gastric bypasses, what you're doing is rerouting the way that the food goes into your intestine and when it comes out so that you have a shorter time to digest that food. So if you say you have 20 feet of small intestine, if we bypass 10 feet of it, you digest and absorb half of the calories that you did before just because of that time. Now, we do know the body is pretty slick. It's very slick. It does a lot of, it knows what's happening and can figure it out. And we know that a lot of those malabsorption surgeries, after about a year or two, the body kind of figures it out and says, hey, we just need to become more efficient. Enjoy the
ride. Enjoy the ride. So right now, we're waiting on stop Bogley. We're waiting on Dr. Crawford to come back. Dr. Crawford has a surprise. He has many gardens and animals. So we're about to have our animals meet. This is Bogley, y'all. Bogley is my golden doodle puppy. Say hi, Bogley. You want to say hi? This is Bogley. Bogley wants to be on here. Bogley, welcome to People Street, Bogley. You're about to see some of your country cousins here in a moment.
Man, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
That's
Look,
Big
Bogley,
Mama.
you see? You see Big Mama?
Say, hey, Big Mama.
Hey, Big Mama. You see Big Mama, Bogley? We have the meeting of the animal kingdom here. That's Big Mama. See Big Mama? Big Mama's a chicken. George, how often do your chickens lay eggs?
So this is a new crop, and they are laying one egg a day. So I average right now about 6 to 8 eggs a day.
What? Boy, you living good, man.
It's you think that, and I eat so many
6 to 8
eggs, and
eggs
my
a
kids,
day.
yeah. So the problem now is that I have to give them away.
Got you. That's a good problem to have in this economy, bro. So how'd you arrive at the name Big Mama, bro?
So she is, I mean, you can see her. She is a massive chicken, and she's actually one of those Tyson chickens that you eat on the table. And a friend of mine kind of gave her to me because he was like, "You want a chicken?" I was like, "Well, I'll take one of yours." And they just are big. They don't fly that much. They're bred to like be eaten. She doesn't lay eggs, but she's sweet as she can be, and she will just I mean, you see she's not clucking or doing anything. She's just sitting in here hanging out.
She just posted up. Dude, I love Big Mama. You are a very fine looking chicken. And I do want to say that, should I ever encounter your eggs, I'd be so very appreciative
Oh, I
because I
got you.
hear that those eggs that are laid
Listen,
are exponentially better than the mess that we get at the grocery store.
I post every once in a while on my YouTube channel and on Instagram the difference because my eggs
Would
are
you say
bright
that's the
yellow.
case, George? I mean, quality wise?
Absolutely. My eggs are bright yellow versus a off color yellow. They're almost orange, but my chickens are also free range. That's kind of how I walked outside and just picked one up. Let me go put her outside so she can go do her thing. Hold on, be right back.
Gotcha. Yeah. See, Dr. Crawford, see that this brother is not just a surgeon, he's not just a chemist. He grows chickens, goats, and every other thing, man. And he is out there at one with nature, man. So we love that. We love that. George, tell us about your day to day, man. What do you have a clinic, is that correct?
Yeah, so the Crawford Clinic, General Surgery Clinic, I was as multi-specialty clinic. We have internists and some other people that come work with us from time to time when they need space. But yeah, my work week is usually all day clinic on Monday. I operate all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, and then Thursday morning I have clinic, and then Thursday afternoon I do more surgery. And Friday is usually my administrative day. So I finish up my charts as well as any Zoom meetings for the host of startups that I work with. So that's pretty much the week. But it starts whether I have my kids that week or not. I get up at 5:30 in the morning every morning. If I have the kids, I get up, cook all of them breakfast, make them lunch. Work out. Weeks I don't have them, still get up at 5:30. And when I get home after they get out from school, you know the routine, soccer, whatever, tennis, basketball practice, moving them around. One of them can drive, but sometimes there's always somebody going the other direction. And then I come home, feed animals, cook dinner, go to bed, start over again.
Do you say you work with startups, man? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Tell you a lot about that. Um, so I have a couple of different startups. One is an education platform that I'm working on with a former superintendent, and another one is a med tech startup, modern surgical design. We have four four patents or four patents in our portfolio. We're working on another three right now that we've prototype tested. They seem to work. So we're in the process of getting those filed. Right now, we have one that we are in the seed round, raising money to bring it to market. We've kind of already talked to contract manufacturing, so that one's up and going. And then the third one is a data platform for physicians who are wanting to retire.
Right on. Right on. Man, that's amazing, man. Not to get into any politics, George, but I do want to ask, man, you to break it down. When you see, the some of the approaches the current administration is taking towards the scientific community with regard to the CDC and the NIH. From your perspective, what do you think are the real world implications of all of these cuts and layoffs of our top minds in particular, those two renowned institutions, the National Institutes of Health, the CDC, and also, our association with the World Health Organization, from your perspective?
So, so we'll start at the top and kind of work your way down. The healthcare community or healthcare industry in the United States is the largest in the world. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it still is the largest. So there's a lot of profit that's made in healthcare in the United States, and a lot of that profit allows other countries to benefit. So, you have a Pfizer that will charge us $1,000 for a medicine that you can get overseas for $100. And part of that is just from a universal healthcare standpoint, but because money is here and money can be made here, that's where a lot of the research is done. That's where a lot of the innovation is done. So when you're looking at healthcare, innovation is one thing, but you kind of also have to adhere to these scientific principles. You kind of have to say, is this ethical? Does this work? How are we going to test this ethically to make sure that it works? So when you start cutting healthcare off at the knees, essentially, the CDC, the NIH. When you start whittling that down, it's not just like, oh, well, we lost 10,000 jobs. It's kind of like, oh, you can't get some of the products that we have to market as quick because the FDA lost 300 employees.
Yeah.
You can't get companies, or not so much companies, really institutions like Emory, Johns Hopkins, Vanderbilt, to help partner with you to do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials to prove that stuff is safe because they don't have that federal funding that they used to have to depend on to staff stuff. So they have to pick and choose which projects they can and can't do. So you're creating a situation where I'm not saying it's not safe to be in healthcare, but you either have to say, we're still going to turn out the same stuff with less regulations because we don't have the people, or we're turning out less stuff because we're going to keep the same regulations, but we have less people. So either way, you're kind of getting this shrinkage on healthcare. Now, does that affect us in the United States? Absolutely. But I think it has a larger impact in organizations like the World Health Organization because, they depend on these innovations to come out of the United States and go to other countries. And they also depend on the support of the scientific community in the United States. Because, if you have a brilliant doctor in Bangladesh that doesn't have the resources necessary to complete some project that they're working on, they can partner with the Cornell, they can partner with an Emory, versus now they can't do that. So that is limiting their ability to solve a problem that is in their community. And part of it is, I, you hate to say this, but a national approach for anything has never really worked. At the end of the day, we all live on a planet, we all live together. And, United States, even though we have the largest economy so far, we probably won't 2030, especially at this rate. But, we also only make up 7%, 8% of the population on the planet. So, if you want to take care of a small group of people, you have to take care of the larger group. And, yes, we're isolated by borders, but the internet, it has basically removed those borders now. Information flows, people flow, we fly. So,
Yeah.
I think that you kind of always have to remember you're a small part in a larger community. And, whether that community is Chacalaco, or some other place that you live, or Alabama or the United States, you still are always a part of a larger community. And anything that makes that community sicker, whether it's a local or a state or a national perspective, it still affects globally. So, I think these changes will create ripples that we will, if you shut down a $2 million grant that people have depended on for 5 years, you can't just say, okay, you got the grant back, keep going. People
Yeah.
have moved on, labs have
Yeah.
been shut down, animals have been killed, all kind of stuff like that. And it's not, you can't turn it off and turn it right back on. It's like you turn it off, you have to rebuild it.
Right on. Right on. Well said, George. Well said. Wow. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, George?
On the beach? No, I'm not working. So in 5 years, I think that some of my startups are getting close to taking off. One in particular, by five years from now, I probably will have sold at least one or two of the companies and have probably start a VC fund that's self-funded that kind of looks at these small projects and small inventors in healthcare like me that need heavy capital to be able to kind of bring products to market. Like it's real easy if you come up with an idea that sounds sexy, you put some AI in it and everybody wants to purchase it. But healthcare is a little different because you got to go through the FDA. So getting real funding is hard sometimes in healthcare startups. So I think hopefully in 5 years I don't think I'll be retired from surgery per se, but it'll become my secondary focus and not my primary focus. And by that time, I'll have a son that's graduated from Morehouse. I have one that's a sophomore and a daughter that's about to graduate from high school. So I can enjoy my kids. At the end of the day, I love my kids. It sounds crazy, but I've raised them to be individual pieces of me. I've raised them to kind of like some of the stuff that I like, but also have the ability to go find stuff that they like. So, I plan to be doing surgery instead of 4 days a week. I plan on doing surgery 1 day a week, clinic 1 day a week, and the other 3 days either doing stuff with these companies or hanging out with my kids. I don't, my goal has always been to completely retire, not completely retire, but living a me focused life as opposed to everyone else focused life when I turn 55.
Did you go to homecoming this past year?
Yes, man, come on. So here's another funny thing. So, I think so I got divorced about 8 years ago,
He's available, ladies.
and
Ladies, he's
they don't
available.
they don't want this smoke.
Are you available?
Yeah, man, they don't want this smoke though. It, the problem is I love myself, I love my kids, and I love my work. So, I have my kids every other week. So trying to find somebody that's willing to hang out every other week, maybe 2 or 3 days, and that's just complicated. But so prior to getting divorced, I was working all the time. I probably worked 6, 7 days a week. I was working 12-hour days, just working, 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 working. And then when I got divorced, I kind of just slowed my lifestyle down, just changed everything that was important to me. I prior to my divorce, I might have gone to homecoming once or twice in that previous 10, 15 years versus now every year. I
I'm
don't miss
telling
a
you.
year. I'm always on the yard. Even if I'm there for a little bit, go hang out in the tent and then do some spell house stuff, centennial class stuff.
Yes.
See Andrew Jimerson, see, everybody that I run into. And then some of
Mhm.
my friends, Wallace Sharif is still teaching at Morehouse. Kelvin Moses
Yes.
is there. I'm always
Shout
there.
out. Shout out Wallace.
Yeah, my son's gonna be
And
taking your
Jimerson.
class, homie. Don't harass him too much.
Don't wear him out, Wallace. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Oh, dude,
What
that's
about
so
you?
dude, I didn't go this year, but I went the year before and the year before that. And honestly, George, man, I think it's probably one of the greater regrets of my life that I didn't go to homecoming more 10 years ago, 15 years ago, man. I should have made it a priority, man. But it's definitely a priority now, man. Seeing people like you, Sharif Jemerson, Aaron Alford, Moses. I got a picture with Moses, you know what I'm saying? Me and Moses and Mike Brooks.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because I think Brooks and Moses are tight too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I
You know,
see I keep up with him through Moses a lot.
yeah, yeah, you know what I'm saying? And I will say this is a PSA. Go to an HBCU if you have the opportunity. If you have the opportunity to go to one, especially a very fine one like Morehouse, and the rest of the AUC and beyond, man, it's such a great thing, man. You know what's so crazy, George, man? When I went to man school player, and I was talking to a lot of our peer group, a lot of them didn't care if they ever went back to their undergrad institution. Because we'd be like,
Yes, yeah.
we didn't care. We were
Yeah.
like, we were like, "Yo, you going to homecoming?" They like, Psh, we don't even have homecoming, and if we did, I wouldn't go back. And I'm like, I cannot relate to that, man, because we can't wait to get
That's
back.
right. That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
I think it speaks to that familial bond that is created at an HBCU. I think that, we don't have that. Well, we do have our struggles, but our struggles are not so much against the school or against the system. And then when they are against the school, it is the school body that is unified against the school.
Yes.
Versus I think a lot of times when you go to a PWI or some other institutions, you kind of get this feeling of y'all didn't want me there in the first place, so why would I go back?
Yeah.
And you have when I go to Morehouse, when I go to homecoming, I always see people I know. They might not be in my class, or they might have been in the class below me because I was their RA or something like that. But I always run into people that I know, and it kind of always feels like there's this bond versus if I go to a reunion at Emory, because they send me stuff all the time. It's so big that you'll never see anybody that you know. And those communities of color are so small in that situation. If 10 people in my class don't come, I don't care. There's still another, 400 dudes that I'll run into that I have the
Mhm.
potential to run into versus if you're in a class with 20 or 30 of you and 10 of you don't come, that's a significant.
That's exactly right. George, I've interviewed George before, and I told George, it was a great interview before, but since we're doing People Street now, I wanted to kind of bring back the OGs of the earlier iteration back. And one of the things I used to do was ask, you know, if you were, one of the things I wanted to do, George, on the real, man, is expose people, man, to the types of people they otherwise perhaps wouldn't have any interaction with whatsoever, man. Is there a book that has made a profound impact on you that you would recommend that others maybe read, man, or perhaps, parents that may end up watching this that, want their daughter or their son to be the next George Crawford or the next Mae Jemison or whatever the case may be. What do you recommend, man, in terms of read material?
So man, you hit me with that last time, and I'll just be 100% honest. I don't read that much.
Hmm.
I am I hate to say the word influencer or anything like that, but I focus a lot on YouTube, as crazy as it sounds. And, my ex-wife and I kind of always fight this. She's like, well, I want them to read a book. I'm like, I hear you. And they do need to have reading comprehension skills, but, YouTube has a lot of good information and people are putting in research and they're doing projects. And, if you want to build a greenhouse, like I'm building a biodome in my backyard and planning on growing mangoes and citrus fruit in Alabama, which is the wrong zone.
Uh-huh.
But found this dude in Minnesota that talks about using compost as an insulator. And it's kind of like, if I tried to read a book about that, I'd have to go to the library and I'd spend $100 on Amazon doing all the research. But, this dude does a step-by-step guide to how to build a hobbit greenhouse. And I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. So,
What's his name?
I probably
Shout
spend.
shout him out, George.
No, man, I'm not gonna shout him out. I don't know him that well. I know him
No,
well
no, no,
enough to know his
shout.
information. No, man, there's no, so I'll shout out one person. I'm gonna shout out one person only. Okay,
All right.
I love to cook. A
You can cook, you can burn, bro.
um, so there is a young lady that I actually met through social media, Asha Gomez, James Beard Award chef, and I reached out to her, went to one of the cooking
Okay.
classes, and she is like she is family to me now. So I'll shout her out because her food is amazing, her pictures are amazing. But
Shout out Asha Gomez, girl.
yeah. So she's out of Atlanta. She does cooking demos, all that kind of good stuff. But again, if I was reading books, I would not have met Asha Gomez. If I was reading books, I wouldn't be building a biodome. You would, but you have to put so much work into it. And I'm not reading for entertainment. I'm reading for knowledge or watching for knowledge. So for me, a lot of it is research. I tell my parents all the time, I'm glad the internet didn't exist when I was young and YouTube didn't exist when I was
Hmm.
young because I love doing so much stuff. I probably would have been a YouTube influencer or something like that instead of going to medical school and being able to pay for my YouTube habit.
Man, I love that, George, and certainly, man, the avenues of knowledge acquisition have changed so much, man, and I feel you on that, man. Even with, the advent, not even with, but of course with the advent of AI. Come on, man. I mean, quantum computing has emerged, so man, we have so many ways to acquire knowledge, man. And dude, I just want to, take the time to thank you, player. Thank you, brother, for joining me today. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, man, because there are some ladies that would like to know what is George Crawford looking for in a woman. They want to know. The people want to know.
I would say there are a lot of amazing women in this world. There's this resurgence of women that occurs when you get divorced later in life. And, what I would say is for George Crawford, My lifestyle is hectic. My lifestyle is complex, and my tastes are complex. So I don't really, I'm at the point in life where I don't really need someone to expose me to anything new, although I love new things. I really am looking for somebody that will appreciate my idiosyncrasies and also understand that that's exactly who I am. I love who I am, and I'm not going to change who I am, but I am also willing to give someone else the same respect that I have. Case in point, if you like expensive bags, that's cool, but also understand there's a high possibility that there will be a chicken in the house from time to time. So like as soon as I finish out here, one of my bunnies has a messed up ear, so I got to go fix that. So there might be a bunny in the house. My kitchen table has a hole in the middle of it where my kids build projects, and we needed a power source to come up from the bottom of the thing. So I went outside and got a drill and put a hole in the
Yeah.
middle of the table.
Yeah.
So it's project table now. So it's it's a lot going on over here. I guess that someone has to appreciate that, and that is hard to find.
Bro, I love it, George. I love it, George. George, tell everybody where they can follow you. You have a couple of pages. Can you give a shout out to all your socials and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I'm probably focusing more on YouTube than anything. So if you go to at Surgery and Boots or the Crawford Clinic, that's where I put the long version and the majority of my medical stuff. On Instagram, they keep shadow banning me, so it's hard to find me sometimes. But if you go to Surgery MD, that is where all of my medical stuff for YouTube is. Excuse me. And then Surgery in Boots is my personal page. You can see me cooking and explain the difference between store-bought eggs versus free-range eggs, and then a little bit on Facebook, but not as much. So pretty much Instagram and YouTube.
What is the difference between store-bought eggs and free-range eggs, George?
So free range, basically your chickens are running around eating ticks, anything they can find. So the protein is a little higher. So if you look at the yolks are very dark yellow versus the yolks in store bought. They're not giving that same high protein because it costs more. They're feeding them corn and whatever else. So the yolks are a very bland yellow color. I'll put a reference to my story in a little bit. Thing that I don't even think I posted. I'll post something on my story today. I'll do that. Just the difference between store bought eggs and free range eggs. But the taste is amazing. Even going back to Asha Gomez, and when she cooks with them, she's like, "Yeah, the eggs, the food tastes better. The bread tastes better." And I think it was featured in. I think she had my eggs in one or two of her cookbooks that she did.
That's what's up, George, man. Do your thing, brother. I love that. Also, one thing we haven't talked about, you may have seen George on TV on several different types of things. George, we don't come on here to be modest, bro. Go ahead and tell us where they could have seen you on TV at various points in your career.
Let's see. So I did a TV show with TLC called Stuck, where we pulled a lot of things out of people. You can stream it on any of TLC's platforms. I know it's in Finnish. I know it's in German. I don't know if they've gotten to Asia yet, but it's worldwide. So, every once in a while somebody will recognize me out from that, or I'll have patients that say, "Hey, I was going through my television and I saw your big head on my TLC streaming thing." So yeah, so that's where I am a lot. And then more recently, I've been on TMZ talking about one or two health issues that some celebrities had. They contact me every once in a while. Yeah. And I changed my YouTube channel a little bit. So now I'm doing series. So I did season one that has 8 episodes on stuff in the operating room that we're doing now. And we're in the talks with one or two TV networks picking up that as well. So I'll have more about that.
That's dope, man. I'm real proud of you. Thank y'all for George for thank you, George, rather, for falling through People's Street, man. I don't know if you know or not though, man. Do you know you remember Clint Jackson from Teaneck, New
Absolutely.
Jersey?
Yeah,
All right, so
absolutely.
Clint,
CNET. Yeah.
yeah. So Clint and I are very close. Have always been close, man. And back when we were juniors, man, they had a house over in the West End, bro. And
Yeah.
it was
I
it
remember
was
it.
you remember? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was off of Peebles Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? But back in the day, I didn't know that. I didn't know the name of the street was People Street. I thought it was People Street. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So hence the name. But over there, man, they used to have, intellectual, engagement. Man, they used to invite a bunch of
Yes.
students over, man, and they discuss topics all night long.
Right.
Hence here we are, man,
Okay.
and it
That
just
makes sense.
goes to show you, man, the ongoing fruits of HBCU and intellectual seeds that have been planted over the years that we hope to continue to germinate and see blossom and pass it on to the next generation. I certainly appreciate you falling through People Street, man, and sharing the knowledge that you have. George Crawford, y'all.
Like and subscribe.